The crack of the cane hitting bare flesh is a sound you never forget. In Malaysia, up to 24 brutal strokes can leave a person permanently scarred, both physically and mentally. Imagine being tied up, helpless as a trained caner delivers blow after blow to your bare buttocks. How did this medieval form of punishment survive into modern times, and why is it still being used today? Caning is a form of corporeal punishment where a person is hit with a cane, typically made from rattan, to inflict pain as a penalty for an offense. It sounds simple, but the process and its effects are quite brutal and complicated. The cane itself can vary in size and flexibility. Some canes are thin and whippy, while others are thick and heavy. The choice of cane and the severity of the punishment depend on the specific laws and the crime committed. The most common areas of the body targeted are the buttocks, hands, and sometimes the feet. Imagine the sting of a thin, flexible cane swishing through the air before landing sharply on the skin, or the thud of a heavier cane impacting the flesh with immense force. The process itself involves several steps, starting with the offender being brought to the caning room. This room is often stark and sterile, heightening the sense of dread. The offender is typically restrained to prevent any movement that might lessen the impact of the cane. In some places, like Malaysia, men are tied to a wooden frame with their bare buttocks exposed. For women, the caning might be done on their clothed back, but this doesn't make it any less painful. The caner, often a trained professional, takes careful aim. They might take a practice swing or two before delivering the first stroke. The sound of the cane cutting through the air is followed by a sickening thwack as it connects with flesh. The initial pain is searing, but it's the cumulative effect of multiple strokes that leads to severe injury. The skin breaks, welts form, and sometimes deep cuts are inflicted. The pain is not just superficial, it penetrates deep into the muscles, leaving the victim with lasting physical scars and a significant trauma. The role of the caner is very important. They often get bonuses for each stroke they give, and there are troubling reports of corruption, with some caners taking bribes to purposely miss their target. However, when they hit their target, the pain is excruciating. Each stroke feels like a fireband being pressed into the skin, and the anticipation of the next hit is almost as unbearable as the impact itself. The physical impact of caning is devastating. Victims often pass out from the pain. In such cases, government-employed doctors are on standby to revive them so the punishment can continue. The psychological trauma is equally severe. The humiliation of being restrained and beaten, often in a public setting, leaves deep emotional scars. Many victims report long-term psychological issues, including anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. In some regions, like Singapore and Brunei, caning is carried out with almost clinical precision. Offenders are caned for a variety of crimes, from theft to drug offenses. The procedure is designed to maximize pain and suffering, ensuring that the punishment is not only felt physically, but also serves as a severe deterrent to others. The practice began in earnest during the 19th century. In schools, it was a favored method for disciplining unruly students. Teachers wielded thin, flexible canes to administer swift strikes to the hands or buttocks of misbehaving pupils. It wasn't just about causing pain, but also about instilling a sense of fear and obedience. In the military, caning served as a severe form of discipline for soldiers who stepped out of line. The idea was to maintain order and discipline through the threat of physical punishment. As the 20th century rolled in, caning started to evolve. Its use spread from schools and the military to judicial systems, where it became a formalized punishment for various crimes. This period marked the peak of caning's prevalence. It was considered an effective deterrent against bad behavior and criminal activity. The canes used in these settings varied in size and thickness, with some designed to inflict maximum pain. However, as people's opinions started to change, the practice of caning came under more and more criticism. What was once a common and accepted form of punishment started to be seen as inhumane and excessively brutal. The transition from common practice to a controversial punishment was driven by changing culture and social perspectives. Over time, public opinion began to turn against caning. People started to question the morality and effectiveness of inflicting such severe pain as a form of discipline. This shift was particularly evident in the mid-20th century as human rights movements gained momentum. The legal status of caning changed in many regions, with laws being enacted to ban or severely limit its use. In England, the practice of caning in schools was finally abolished in the 1980s after years of debate and protest. The military also used less physical punishment and started using kinder ways to enforce discipline. The judicial use of caning continued in some former British colonies, but even there, the practice faced growing opposition. The cultural and social perspectives on caning have varied significantly across different regions. In some parts of Asia and Africa, caning remains a legally sanctioned punishment, often justified as a necessary deterrent against crime. However, in many Western countries, the practice is viewed as archaic and barbaric, a relic of a less enlightened time. Societal attitudes towards caning have undergone significant changes. What was once a widely accepted form of punishment is now often seen as a violation of human rights. The debate continues, with advocates arguing that caning is an effective deterrent and opponents condemning it as a form of torture. Caning, despite its brutal nature, is still practiced in several countries around the world. It's fascinating and horrifying to see how this form of punishment is applied differently depending on the region. In Malaysia, caning is part of the legal framework and is used for a range of crimes, including theft, rape, and kidnapping. What makes Malaysia stand out is the sheer number of offenses that can lead to caning, about 60 different crimes to be exact. The procedure is both secretive and public, depending on the severity of the crime. Public caning is reserved for serious offenses like rape and incest, intended to serve as a deterrent. The caning process here is quite brutal. The offender is tied up and struck on the bare buttocks with a thick, wet rattan cane. The pain is so severe that people often pass out, only to be revived by doctors so the punishment can continue. In Singapore, judicial caning is a strong way to prevent crime. The legal framework is strict, and caning is used for offenses such as drug trafficking, vandalism, and rioting. The procedure is methodical. Offenders are stripped and strapped to a wooden frame, their buttocks exposed to the caner's swings. Each stroke is delivered with precision to maximize pain and avoid serious injury, although the pain and psychological trauma are immense. The government believes this method is effective in maintaining law and order, despite international criticism. Brunei and Indonesia use caning in their legal systems, especially under Sharia law for Muslims. In Brunei, caning is used for a variety of offenses, and the punishment is carried out with a sense of religious duty. Indonesia, specifically the Aceh province, practices caning as part of its Sharia law for both Muslims and non-Muslims. Offenders are caned on the clothed upper back, which, while less severe than bare buttocks caning, still inflicts significant pain and humiliation. African countries like Botswana, Tanzania, Eswatini, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria also use judicial caning, mainly for young offenders. In these regions, the legal framework permits caning as a disciplinary measure aimed at deterring future misconduct. The procedure varies, but it often involves striking the offender on the hands or buttocks, sometimes publicly. The goal is to create fear and obedience through the pain caused by the cane. For more videos about punishment and crime, subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, share with your friends, and stay tuned for exclusive content.